Hey, welcome back. I have actually two videos I'd like to go over. I mean, it's kind of a reaction, but mainly I want people to watch them, and I don't think they get enough exposure. So I'm gonna do my best to keep my mouth shut through this. I mean, as I said, and I'm gonna keep saying it, my primary reason for doing this is to remind white people that we are not the plague of the universe. We're not. I mean, I know that you've been told that or propagandized that throughout your whole life, but that's simply not true. I mean, once you learn the history of what actually happened, that the first slave owner in America was a black man who had indentured white servants. And white servants, indentured servants, because they weren't lifetime slaves, they were often treated far worse than lifetime slaves. Anyway, I want to say this again. We're 6% of the global population, down from 7%. We keep dropping. I mean, and once we're gone, we're gone. There is no coming back. It will be like any other extinct species. And I don't think this planet's going to do very good without us. I mean, you can claim you know, but you don't. I mean, if you look at all the inventions that brought us to the modern age, the majority of them were created by white people. And this is not a kick on any other ethnicity or color or nothing like that. It's just simply facts, period. And somebody might not like that. I don't give a shit. And neither should you. I mean, we've spent, 20 years now bowing down to other ethnicities? Watching our politicians tell us that, oh, it's going to be so great when the last, white people won't be the majority in America. And what do we hear from the Democrat Party? All we hear about is how they're going to take over. I showed you the video the other day of the CCP Chinaman sitting there trying to unite all the other races. I don't think he's going to have success in doing it, and I'll tell you why. Because black people in this country, they're not black, they're not African Americans. They never were. Everybody who's born today was born in America, and generationally, quite a while back. Okay. Now, of course, there's illegals and stuff. I don't consider them I don't consider them Americans. I don't consider foreign people coming into this country to be Americans. Not until they embrace the American ethos, how we do things. And it's great to see Americans stand by each other and everything, but we try to be the nice guys in every situation, but the world doesn't care about your niceties. Alright, let's get into this video. I think you're going to find it very interesting.
Esteemed member of Congress has a message for us, and I think the least we can do is listen to it, because after all, somebody in this country voted for this guy and decided to give him political power. So let's see what he has to say, shall we?
Communities are divided. I always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. Because we are the majority in this country now. We have the ability to take over this country and to do what is needed for everyone.
Oh, well, there you go. They have what is needed to take over this country now. From who? Well, I guess white guys weren't mentioned in his pantheon of victims, and so we must be the oppressors. That's right. Now, you may be wondering to yourself, wait a second, Nick, I've never actually engaged in anything even resembling active oppression against anybody. Well, tough. They've decided that you are guilty of oppression, and that's just the way it is. And now that we have people like this in Congress, obviously they're going to attempt to wield government power in such a way as to punish you oppressors in order to make things fair for everybody else. not you. By the way, for the purposes of this podcast, I'm going to emphasize that Freitas is Portuguese. So when these people come and hurt everybody, I just want them to know that I'm claiming Hispanic status. But let's face it, I can identify as anything I want, right? Because when you mention other communities, we know you don't mean white guys, but then of course we also know that in your worldview you can identify as anything you want. So I guess does that work? Does that protect me from the purge that's supposed to be coming? You may be asking yourself, how did we get to this point, right? I thought racism was bad. Well, that's where you'd be wrong. Racism is only bad because it's only something that white people can do. At least that's what the academics tell me. Now, I used to think that racism was essentially anybody who believed in the inherent inferiority or superiority of another person or group of people based off of their race. But apparently it has new definitions now, and it's perfectly okay to think this way and say these things about white people in general. And let's face it, they mean white men more specifically, because I don't know. Let's find out. In fact, let's peruse some quotes, some ideas, some things that may have influenced this all too common opinion now, not just within crazy places in academia, but within the halls of power, that it's perfectly okay to generalize about an entire group of people and essentially wish for their downfall. Now, bear with me because we got a lot of screenshots to go through here. Here's one that I like. This one has to do with a professor that said white genocide. Excuse me, the professor behind white genocide tweet says he has university support. What do you mean a tweet behind white genocide? Oh, here he goes. A Drexel University professor whose tweet that he wanted white genocide for Christmas sparked a firestorm of criticism from the school and social media, said on Tuesday that administrators supported his right to take part in political debate. That's just political debate, people, right? There's nothing more with that. Saying that all you want for Christmas is white genocide. Right? The complete elimination of an entire group of people based off of their melanin levels. No. That's not engaging in overt racist or racism or calling for the destruction of innocent people. No. That's just political debate. That's all that is. And if you say different, well, then you're probably a racist, probably one of those white guys that need to be genocided, right? Oh man, but I'm sure
By the way, what race was genocided by the Germans? Was it black people? No. It was Israelis, right? I mean, when you think about it, like, why do people keep even hearkening back to Hitler in a way, like, against black people? As far as I know, he didn't give a shit about black people. He was exterminating Jews, which last time I checked, Jews are white. I'm just saying, man, it seems like they want you to believe that, I don't know, all these other ethnicities are so oppressed and so suppressed and everything else. I mean, I'd like to see some examples, because I could tell you other examples of white genocide. Africa. The thousands of white people that they've genocided over there. So far, I'm only seeing genocide going one way, and it isn't towards black people. It isn't towards other ethnicities. Like, every time they try to paint America in a bad light, keep that in the back of your mind. It's almost like they're using things that have happened to us, because it did. It happened to white people, okay, to justify their aggressiveness and hate of white people. I mean,
I'm sure it doesn't get any worse, right? Like that's not. Oh wait, no, here we go. We got to take these mother effers out. Rutgers professor calls white people villains. Well, of course we're villains, because we're white, and that's pretty much all that's necessary in order to call us villains. Let me see. Do we got any other people from academia here that are wanting to chime in a little bit? Who's this guy right here? Oh, we have another one from a watch list. Dr. Sean Schwaller is a history professor at California.
And also, one last thing I'd like to add to that. The Nazi Party was a socialist party. I know they keep trying to turn him into a fascist and everything else. He believed in socialism. Does that remind you of anything? The Democrat Party, maybe a little bit. I mean, they call themselves socialists. And you know why they call themselves socialists? Because communists are not allowed to hold office or even, they're not allowed to be in America. Yet, surprisingly, I don't know, we softened up on that law. Another law flushed down the toilet, not followed, not enforced. Maybe that's why Americans just want the laws to be enforced as they were meant to be, without feelings.
California State Chico, where I was born. His notable courses cover topics including Chicanx and Latinx studies, U.S. history and American Indian studies. Dr. Schwaller has further served on the Ethnic Studies Committee at the university and is thus tasked with determining which courses will fulfill California's Ethnic Studies requirement. Wait a second. Ethnic Studies requirement. Yeah, that's right. Passed in July of 2020, California State University systems now require all enrollees to complete one ethnic studies or social justice course in order to graduate. The requirement will affect all 23 campuses and nearly 500,000 students in the California university system. Well, of course it would. Why wouldn't it? Now, here's the question. If we're going to go ahead and make all of these students within the California university system take these sorts of courses, what exactly do they look at? I mean, what sort of curriculum might be included in such a course that they would take? Would it be anything like this right here? Oh, here we go. That's right. Beyond Guilt and Privilege, Abolishing the White Race. Assembled by Viewpoint Magazine 2020. Well, I'm sure this is the sort of thing that would probably be included in one of those social justice courses. But you know what? Maybe this is just a provocative title, right? Maybe I'm being unfair. I'm sure there's nothing in this book that would be considered like really crazy or, oh, wait, here it goes. Now is not the time to focus on whiteness. And yet, if our movement hopes to abolish the white domination, we must at least ask what whiteness means. We should be clear on its history and effects on our social existence. Neither endless introspection among white people, nor corporate handbooks on diversity, nor a purely moral recognition of white supremacy's evils can provide such clarity. We need to examine whiteness as a political problem. The materials in this pamphlet aim to move the discussion from a fixation on individual experience of whiteness toward the broad possibilities of collective struggle for abolition and human freedom. Abolishing white domination certainly includes abolishing specific institutions like prisons and police. The texts here, however, taken together, suggest something more. To abolish white domination means, in fact, to abolish whiteness itself. This is because whiteness is a historically constituted institution that by design divides oppressed and exploited people and creates a means for some to participate in their own subordination. The struggle against whiteness is a struggle for black liberation, but also for the liberation of those people who currently hold tight to their whiteness. It is a struggle to reject what Noel Ngavid calls whiteness's barbed offering, ostensible benefits conferred on even or even imposed by the state and capital that lead people to eschew solidarity and become further trapped in a system that cannot serve their needs. Okay, sure. Whatever exactly that means. But let's take a look. Is there any other things that we might find as part of this attempt to ensure that all students within the California university system, and I'm sure other places as well, experience the proper kind of anti-racist activities that they should? Oh, how about this quote from Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility? White people raised in Western society are conditioned into a white supremacist worldview because it is the bedrock of our society and its institutions. Regardless of whether a parent told you that everyone was equal, or the poster on the hall of your white suburban school proclaimed the value of diversity, or you have traveled abroad, or you have people of color in your workplace or family, the ubiquitous socializing power of white supremacy cannot be avoided. The message circulates 24/7 and have little or nothing to do with intentions, awareness, or agreement. Entering the conversation with this understanding is freeing because it allows us to focus on how rather than if our racism is manifest. When we move beyond the good-bad binary, we can become eager to identify our racist patterns because interrupting those patterns becomes more important than managing how we think to others. You're starting to see what's going on here. It's almost like the deck is completely stacked, and they've created a kind of worldview where you're supposed to presuppose the way that they view things or power structures or their conception of reality. And if you don't, well, that's just evidence that you're a bad person. But you know what? Let's look at some of the other things that we have. The examples don't stop there, and I'm gonna force us all to look at some more. His Tim Wise, this guy's a big anti-racist instructor. He goes, the LDS church shooter was MAGA merch, signed right-wing petitions, and had a Trump sign. No doubt an Antifa soldier, right? Honestly, we don't know motive, but again, the only consistent thread with these things is white men, not politics, white masculinity. So this is...
I realize that he's reading, so you know how it is. Sometimes you listen to somebody read and start nodding out, falling asleep on it. I know. I mean, this is all good information, and people need to know, though. In all seriousness, we need to stop the stop the idiocy, especially the useful idiots who seem to think that, I don't know, white people are the ultimate evil, and that white people are the majority, and that white people are oppressing everyone. What they really mean, the roots and all of this goes back to is communism, and them trying to spread it here in America. Understand, the Demonrat Party at this point is being funded by the CCP. A lot of their movements, a lot of their charities are directly funded. The video I showed you about the Chinese dude that was calling for genociding white people, he's from China. I mean, we're all Americans. Black, white, red, green. I don't care what your skin color is. If you're in this country, you're an American. Well, if you're in this country legally. If you're not, then sorry, homie, but not only are you a criminal, but now you're kind of an enemy of the country. I mean, we're starting to realize what's going on here. This was an attempted invasion of our country. Period. They can decorate it up in racism and slavery and everything else while they're still practicing racism and slavery in those countries. Why is it that we're always held to a bar that they can't meet? Well, I mean, I guess we'll find out if you just hang with me. This video is 38 minutes long. It's well worth your time. I'm going to try not to interrupt during the rest of this video. I mean, I have to add context now and again because otherwise I'd just be copying their content. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is get his message out there because he really breaks this down. And at the end of it, you're going to see what this is all about. And then we have one more video to view after that I think is very eye-opening. This is a war to stop communism. It's not really about race, because if you go by history, if you dig into history, what you find out is that most of the shit that they say is a lie. It's a twist on the truth. Like people in the news who will report on race deaths and stuff, they'll stand in front of the stat that says how many black people have killed white people while they have the camera locked on to the one where it says about white people. Understand this. They're trying to foment that hate to have us against each other, fighting each other, because there is no more powerful warrior on this planet than an American. They don't want us together. I'm talking about other countries too. I mean, they're losing to our soldiers. They're losing to our boys. And our ladies, sorry. And we need to stop it in all its forms. And it always comes wearing a mask. Feminism is all based on Marxism and communism. Same thing as their socialist agendas and everything. All based on communism and Marxism. That's what they want to turn this country into. Here's the thing, though, that I don't think China understands. If America ever became a communist nation, could you imagine what we could do to the world? I mean, right now, all of us standing up and fighting for America to stay as a republic. We're fighting to save the world, too. What would stop America from just taking over China? You think that they're going to stop us with nuclear weapons? You think they're going to end the world? No, they won't. And now, apparently Iran has hypersonic missiles they're using against Israel. There's a lot of things going on in this world, and these countries are celebrating our division. when they have idiots like Bad Bunny showing up and insulting America, they know what they're doing. I don't care what was his name, Roger Goodell or whatever that runs NFL. That's an American sport. You go to Britain and they don't think football's the way that we have it over here. They think it's like kicking a soccer ball around. Baseball is another inherent American sport, but you can't even go and watch that stuff anymore. Do you understand? They're in our video games now. They're putting this stuff in there to brainwash people, and a lot of times you don't even realize that it's there. You know, because they'll put a backdrop back in like say 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Games are coming out that were very manly, very pro-America. You know what I mean? Anti-communism. Now those games are gone. I mean, I've been getting into older games again, and I'm telling you, to play those games, to play those, how did we go back in technology? I mean, games nowadays look worse than they did, like Assassin's Creed Unity. It looks better than the new Assassin's Creed. Anyway, this all comes down to DEI, sexist bullshit that they push on our country. And again, it's all meant to divide. They come to you and they say, yeah, you're oppressed. Let us help you. And then next thing you know, you start eating that shit up. We have to stop this, okay? The midterms are coming up. In the next month, we're going to be voting. It's time for us to stand up and defend our nation, just like our soldiers do every day. It's time to put the division shit in behind us, because it's being funded by other nations. Understand that. And in my personal belief, not just mine, a lot of others, by the way, including the President of the United States, the Demonrat Party is right now captured by the communist propaganda. I mean, it's controlled by the communist wing of that party. They've chased out any Democrat. Notice I say Democrat. Demon rats are the ones there in the Democrat Party now. But Democrats were chased over into the Republican Party because they didn't believe in the communist insanity that they have over there. We need to stop this. Understand, soldiers can't fight this war for us. We have to fight this war ourselves. And it's kind of a shame that soldiers fight, die, bleed out on the battlefield in other nations to protect the homeland. But yet the people in this homeland who benefit from their deaths and their bleeding and their suffering, they don't care. You know, they don't realize that the only reason they have those freedoms is because of America. Instead, they want to turn us into a racist, oh, we're this, we're that, we're this, we're that. I'm not with that. That's the root of why I do these videos. I mean, mainly I want to get their other messages out. The mainstream media does not. And look, it's very pernicious, just so you know. Now I'm gonna let this finish. But Apple on phones and stuff, what's the news that always comes up? It's always mainstream news from their narrative. Their narrative is always anti-America. It's anti-Trump. They hate Trump so bad, they can't think about nothing but Trump. You know why they hate Trump? Because Trump is the first president to be in a position who was an American citizen who's fighting for our country. He's fighting for his future and his kids' futures just the same as we are. And don't get it twisted. I'm sure he would like to go out there and clean the map. But here's the problem. As president, he could take action. But as long as he's getting mixed signals from the American people, and that's what's been happening, we all know it. Oh, you're going too far with ICE. ICE isn't being polite enough. None of these people get off the couch and go do it themselves, you notice that. They're just always quick to criticize. You know, well, they should have did it better while they're playing it on slow-mo. Well, that isn't how life works, my friend. Instead, it happens very quickly. And sometimes you just have to live with the decisions you make in that moment. Either way, let's finish these videos. Let's finish this one. I'm gonna do my best not to interrupt unless I have to until the end of this video. So I prefer not to have really extended long cuts, but I mean, look, the message has got to get out there, and a certain app keeps their boot squarely on my throat. And I don't know if they have the like button and the share button broken or something, but I truly believe that the Americans have just lost the will to do anything. I mean, I see people fighting back, don't get me wrong, and good on them, but it's damn phone. What I don't see is a whole lot of people supporting. And look, I'm not just talking about my content. I'm talking about Nick Fuentes's, or this is, hold on a second. Yeah, I usually announce who this is. It's Nick Friedis's. I mean, look, 2.3 thousand likes, and he's got 1.48 million subscribers. This is laziness. I mean, it's insulting to a degree. I mean, you watch the entire content, but you can't drop a like. And I'm not trying to shame anybody, okay? Well, maybe I am, actually. Let me take that back. Maybe I am. I mean, because this is ridiculous. This affects whether the message gets out there. And the very least that we can do is like their content and share it. That way it gets out to people so people learn. You know, that's the only way people are going to learn today. Otherwise, they're going to be radicalized. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, it takes 2 seconds to like content. 2 seconds, not even. Just, I mean, literally. How long did that take? Not even a second. Not even a second to do that. And I don't care about my videos. Don't hit like. Whatever. I don't give a shit. Don't like them. Just give these guys likes. They spent, this dude, to put this video together, 38 minutes and 55 seconds of a video. It took him a lot of editing, making sure he's got his words right, maybe going back and cutting it if he said something he didn't mean to say, or maybe it came out wrong. I mean, it's really, and it's not just here. It's on video games too. People don't communicate. Guys, it's time to wake up. It's time to shake this shit off. Like, I felt bad for Americans because they were propagandized before. I get that. You know what I mean? I understand that. But now it's getting to the point to where, cry me a fucking river. I mean, seriously, you ever heard the term, when you're injured, get up and walk it off? That's what you need to do. Get up and walk it off. I mean, it sucks that the country's against us sometimes. It sucks that we're in this situation. But the more you lay down and do nothing, the more you don't support people who are trying to get the message out there to people that are being brainwashed through their phones. Most people spend their entire day looking at their phone. And yet Apple News, they just released a poll. It wasn't a poll, they looked into it. Left-wing news articles and information being put out there. It's like 380-some thousand. And you know how many conservative sides, conservative information was put out there? Zero. Zero. This is propaganda. And they're winning. Because we're all letting them win. And we're better than that. You're better than that. It takes a second, not even to hit the thumbs up. And that gets the message out there. You know what I mean? It gets other people to look at. This isn't about money. I don't make money on my content. And I don't ever want to make money on my content, okay? But these guys are completely different. I mean, their whole day is this. They go around all day, every day, you know, trying to wake people up. And we have to support them. I mean, because if we don't, then you're going to experience communism in a very real way. Or you're going to see Trump go through impeachment after impeachment after impeachment. I could show you some other videos of what's going to happen, too. I mean, they're already talking about Sri Shanadar, that freaky dude. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with his hair and his face? How much plastic surgery did that fool have? Anyway, he's out there already talking about there's going to be consequences to your actions. They're already threatening people that when they get back in power, they're going to make people suffer. In that case, it behooves us, it's in our best interest to not allow them to get back in power, correct? So, it's time to get active. It's time to fight for the country that allows you to have the life that you do. I mean, you go outside this country, you're going to learn real fast. Your life is going to be shit compared to what you had it here. Here in this country, you have the best life. I don't care. The poorest person in this country has the best life compared to the majority of the country. I'm sorry, the majority of the world. And those are facts. So stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stand up. Brush off the dirt. Brush off the horrible shit that's happened. And let's team up and take this on and stop it before it gets too bad. I mean, show that American fire. You have it. Every one of us has it. It's time to let it go. Let it out. Time to stop letting these people laugh and behind your back about how they fooled you into this shit. To not participate, that it doesn't matter. Hey, why would I want to, support that guy? Maybe you want to support him because of his message that's helping you. Again, I'm not trying to kick anyone directly. I'm just saying, I look at content like this, and I see the views, I see everything else, and I'm going, why? Yeah, look at this, 22,000 views. By the way, his content is very suppressed, just like mine. If on this one app, now I go to all the other places that I post my content, and I get interactions, I get people viewing my content, I get people sharing my content. Not on this app. It gets suppressed, and then the people that do see it don't even take literally not even half a second to hit a like or to subscribe so they can get the message back. I mean, look, do what you want, but don't come crying to anybody when 5 years from now, you're in a communist country. Or maybe we wouldn't even be here. Maybe your lifestyle you'll be living in real poverty. I mean, we're fighting to save this nation. It's time to stand up and start fighting to help them save this nation. That's why I make this content. That's why I make these videos. And trust me, I get a lot of hate for it. I'd rather make Helldiver videos all day and stuff like that. But this is ridiculous. This is not acceptable. Again, I mean no disrespect to you. But sometimes tough love is real love. That's the most love you can give someone. We'll finish this video.
Is where we get a little bit more specific, whereas the other people were focusing on pretty much all white people in general. Tim here wants to focus on white masculinity as the true source of the problem. But again, he's not alone. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. Oh gosh, this one comes from Jay here and Jonathan. I like this one. Jonathan Perk. Black people cannot be racist against white people. Mean, angry, prejudiced, even violent against white people because of their whiteness. Yes, but not racist. Why? Racism requires institutional and systemic power, which white people have always maintained and kept from black people. Then Jay responds, because it's the same guy, right? White men do suck, though. Literally each and every white man is quite racist, usually without knowing it, rarely, if ever, admitting it. So this guy is able to make categorical statements against all white people to include one he's never met, never interacted with, or, I don't know, was never even around when some of them existed. But then he goes on to say that black people cannot be racist against white people. This is also a point where I want to point something that out that I think is important, and that is the complete redefinition of racism. When I was growing up, racism was the belief in the inherent superiority or inferiority of someone based off of their race, which was a pretty even-handed definition, I thought. It essentially created circumstances where anybody could potentially be racist. It was all a question of what they believed about their fellow human beings based off of immutable characteristics, in this case, race. But then they decided to redefine the term. And you got to ask yourself, why was that necessary? Right? If we can agree that, on the definition of racism that I just described, well, then clearly anybody could theoretically be guilty of racism. But they wanted to create conditions where only one group of people could be guilty of racism. And that's where they added this whole concept of power structures or institutions. Let me tell you why I think that there could be some point to this. For instance, if you had two racists, let's say one racist lived in his mother's basement writing manifestos that nobody ever read. And then the other racist was, in the Senate. It would be fair to say that the racist in the United States Senate certainly posed more of a threat or a danger than the person randomly writing crappy manifestos in their mother's basement. Now, both people would be racist. It's just that one would present a bigger threat because they had more power in order to act on their racism in ways that could significantly impact wide swaths of people. So I understand how power dynamics can focus into which racism poses the greater threat. But to suggest that someone can't be racist if they don't have power to act on their racism in a significant way is stupid. And here's why. Let's say I take the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and let's say I pick him up out of wherever racist hole he's currently residing in, and I move him to, I don't know, Nairobi, or how about Beijing? Now, clearly, the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, who already doesn't possess any genuine political, social, or economic power in the United States, but just for argument's sake, I move him into an area where he clearly has no economic, political, or social power. Does he stop being a racist now? Because if the definition of racism is you actually have to maintain a certain amount of power in order to carry out your racism, well, clearly in that situation, he would have none of the requisite power that you say is essential to racism. So you now willing to say that the Grand Wizard of the KKK is no longer racist because of a lack of power? No, I don't think they would. But let's remember something here. Intellectual consistency is not very important to them. And that's why you should obviously reject any attempt to suggest that you can't be racist unless you have sufficient power. No, you can be racist whether you have a lot of power or whether or not you have none. Now, clearly, we should focus our efforts on the people that have power because they pose the greatest threat. But this little linguistics game they've engaged in is just a way of trying to absolve them of their own racism, just directed in a group that they think has it coming. Let's look at some of the other examples here. This was one that I thought was interesting. President condemns racially charged tweets. All right. Grundy's tweets, which included such statements as white masculinity isn't a problem for America's colleges, white masculinity is the problem for America's colleges. And for the record, no race outside of Europeans had a system that made slavery a personhood instead of a temporary conditions, were first reported on the website So College. They have since been reported by Fox News, The Washington Times, and other publications. So what's interesting about this, because this is another thing that we need to talk about, they talk about no race outside of Europeans had a system that made slavery a personhood instead of a temporary condition. So first of all, that's just fundamentally not true. There are some people that have claimed that what made slavery in the United States unique is that they either tried to dehumanize black slaves by claiming that they weren't fully human or that they were a different species. Or they point out that slavery in certain places was there was more of a racial component. So for instance, the Arab slave trade, which was responsible for, far more black slaves than ever came to the United States.
I think it's important to point out that the Arab slave trade also used to cut the genitals off of black people. That's true, look it up. They didn't want them meeting or mixing their blood with their nation. Americans, we didn't do that. And really, we were only involved in the slave trade for a very small amount of time compared to the rest of the world. These countries are still, to this day, involved in the slave trade. Yet they'll sit there and act all shocked, and like China and Africa and all that, of how bad America is. What are you talking about? Why aren't we focusing on the countries that still have slavery to this day? Just that right there should end their argument. Like, if they say they're fighting oppression and racism worldwide and all this stuff, why is it that they only focus on America, the most free country on the planet?
States is seldom mentioned for some reason. And one of the reasons they get held up is like, well, that the Arabs enslaved all kinds of people. They had white slaves, they had, black slaves, like the Vikings had different slaves, but what made the U.S. slavery uniquely evil was its emphasis on race. And I certainly think slavery is evil, right? And I think that the sort of slavery that we saw in the United States was evil. But there was also this attempt in the United States. One of the reasons why they tried to explain away slavery was because within a Christian worldview, it's very, very difficult to justify slavery. In fact, one might even say impossible. And so they tried to come up with ways that they worked around it. Now, I don't think that excuses anything, but I think it's a little bit ridiculous to assume that the sort of chattel slavery which exists in the United States was somehow the most unique and most evil of slavery, and the slavery that got exercised in Asia or Africa or in other places that were not Eurocentric. Well, that was different, because again, the emphasis always has to be on the unique evilness of white people. And so, anytime we point out something like, "Gosh, it seems like slavery was something of a human condition and a problem that was experienced all over the world," No. It's always uniquely evil to white people. And there's more quotes up here. Ibram X. Kendi had a film to screen for his Netflix film, "Whiteness Prevents White People from Connecting to Humanity." Here's another one. This one is particularly good. This was one where an academic, we put that in scare quotes, Zeus Leonardo of UC Berkeley, calls for the genocide of white people to achieve social justice. But of course he does. And then, of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, healing ourselves of white supremacy will be hard. It will hard because it requires us to confront ourselves. We wish it were as simple as denouncing a white hood, a burnt cross, vile language, but we need to address where white supremacy begins, not just where it ends. And then she goes into this long thing where, again, it's just the unique evils of whiteness. And again, it's one of those things too, where you look at this one quote by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I'm not going to show it, I'll just read it for you. "White supremacy is often subconscious." Of course it is. "And clearly our nation has not been inoculated. White supremacy is our nation's original sin, the driving logic of slavery."
By saying it's subconscious, that opens the door to them saying that everybody that's white is actually racist. If you didn't understand what he meant, why he rolled his eyes, you don't even have to have a racist bone in your body, but subconsciously, even if you don't know it, you're racist. That's what they're trying to say. I mean, and like him, I'm rolling my eyes so hard they're going back into the back of my head. This is being used, to say no matter what, white people are the ultimate racist, even though we only present 6% of the global population. Keep that in mind. Never forget that, because I think that number right there, in my opinion, makes everything these people are saying look stupid. I mean, because it is stupid. When they try to say they're the minority, they are not the minority. Maybe in America, but globally, no, they're not. And they're in the only place on this planet where white people can exist without being killed, raped, owned as slaves, and worse. That's what they want to subject us to. Remember that. He's going to get to it, though, at the end. I mean, he starts breaking it down. He's trying to give you all the information before he goes to his suppositions. Me, I've already been laying this out for a while. So, and, I don't have to speak for them because they can speak for themselves. And usually it's much worse than anything I could tell you about anyway. I like this guy, though. I like his breakdown of this. And we'll have one more video after this from, I think it's Kingdom Reacts, where black people have had enough of this because white people will not stand up, so they're standing up for us. Good on them. Good on them.
Native genocide, of Jim Crow, of segregation, of mass incarceration, of, quote, "send her back." Isn't it interesting that she is assigning things like "send her back," which has gotten, directed like Ilhan Omar? That is apparently on Crow with native genocide, Jim Crow, or slavery, right? Looking at someone like Ilhan Omar, who it really looks engaged in blatant immigration fraud to get in this country, and has since stated that her true motivation is to represent Somalians and Somalia, not the United States. So you have someone that potentially committed, immigration fraud, who clearly doesn't like the United States, which is to say that doesn't like our constitutional structure, doesn't like our culture or civilization. To suggest that maybe that person should leave is now on akin with slavery is the sort of absurdity that we've grown to expect from someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Right. And then, of course, we have Tim Wise again, which means he is taking down whiteness is an eminently reasonable thing to do. Whiteness has no inherently valuable meaning. European culture does, as with all cultures, but we weren't white in Europe. To preserve whiteness is to preserve a system of inequity and nothing else. So where does all this crap come from? And the answer is, It comes from concepts surrounded in critical theory. What's critical theory? Well, looked it up here to try to get a good definition, a good synopsis. Critical theory originated from the Frankfurt School in the 1930s. Thinker like Max Horkheimer, Theodor Adorno, later Jürgen Habermas, is a Marxist-inspired approach to analyzing society. It views culture, institutions, and power structures as tools of oppression that maintain inequality, often along lines of class, race, gender, or other identities. Rather than just describing the world, it seeks to emancipate people by deconstructing and critiquing these systems, influencing fields like critical race theory, queer theory, and post-colonial studies. Now, what's important to understand is that inherent in all of this is this idea that there's kind of a postmodernist component to this, and postmodernism rebels against this idea of meta narratives, right, or larger narratives. The kind of the rejection of things like objective truth or objective morality are commonly discussed within postmodernism. You can look at guys like Michael Foucault for this. You get some of this too out of the existentialists, whether it's Jean-Paul Sartre. Feminism has adopted a lot of these critical theory components. But the bottom line is that, again, it's this overall rejection of objective truth and objective morality, which means it is completely hostile to Christianity. And because it's also taken on this later idea within critical race theory that, again, white people are uniquely evil, right? That those of European descent were uniquely evil as a result of colonialism, as a result of slavery, as a result of capitalism. That's one of the things that you see in a lot of these issues. Ibram X. Kendi went so far as to say that to be truly anti-racist, you had to be anti-capitalist. This is where we always get the Marxist undertones, right? The leaders of the BLM said that they were heavily influenced by Mao Zedong and also claimed communism. And it's crazy because when I used to bring that up, I got told, well, no, that's not accurate. All they want is greater equality. No, they don't. Ladies and gentlemen, God forbid these sorts of academics or politicians ever get complete control over the economy like they would, because after all, they're Marxists and thinks that we should abolish the private ownership of the means of production. You're going to want to make sure that you actually have some capacity to hold on to the wealth that you have earned. How this has gone from academia into our political spheres. But you need to understand that it's also gone into your schools. And I don't mean just higher ed. I remember having this debate about critical race theory working its way into our schools. Like, I'm talking about like our elementary schools, our middle schools, our high schools. And what I was told when I brought this up in a debate once is that I was being divisive, that I was being racist, that there was no critical race theory within our schools. Now, here's what's interesting about this. Critical race theory is something that the left has advanced. No, it was not just a legal theory in the 1980s. It's rooted in this larger critical theory, this structure, this worldview, the way you're supposed to interpret reality, and by putting everyone into oppressor and oppressed. And lo and behold, the oppressors tend to be white male capitalists, right? So I brought up that critical race theory and several of its offshoots, to include queer theory, were working their ways into our schools. My Democrat opponent said that's not true, and I was being divisive. So I pulled out of my pocket at the time quotes that were going on in educational training that teachers in Virginia were required to take in either to get their teacher's license or to renew their teaching license. And so here's what was especially pernicious about this. It would be one thing if the school system had said, hey, we're going to teach your children about critical race theory or critical theory or queer theory or one of the others. Because then parents would have looked at a textbook or a syllabus. They would have seen some sort of curriculum that they could have pointed to and said, wait a second, what is going on? There might have been options to opt out of it. But that's not what the Democrats did. What the Democrats did was set up this extracurricular activity for teachers and then make going through this training and education a condition of getting or renewing their teacher's license. And I brought this up once before. I said, okay, I want you to imagine a world where a Republican or a conservative said, you know what? As a condition of getting your teacher's license, we're going to make every teacher go through Catholic catechism. And then when you come out and say, well, wait a second, are you introducing Catholicism into the classroom? I'm going to look at you like you're an idiot and say, how dare you suggest, show me one syllabus, show me one textbook, show me one anything that requires your child to learn about Catholicism. You would look at me and say, that's a disingenuous argument. It's a disingenuous argument because rather than actually coming right out and providing curriculum, no, what I'm doing is I'm attempting to impose a worldview on teachers so that now they take that worldview back into the classroom. And regardless of what they're teaching, they don't need to be teaching history or sociology or philosophy or economics. Maybe they're just teaching English. Maybe they're just teaching math. But now you expect those teachers to apply a critical theory worldview, a lens with which they teach everything, which makes it even more subversive and pernicious because you're not even being honest about what you're doing. And you did it this way on purpose so that when parents could express some concern, you could point to a syllabus completely free of any direct mention of critical theory and say, what are you talking about? But we all saw the results, didn't we? No, they were doing it on purpose, and they were using our tax dollars to do it. And it started in the university, and then it worked its way into politicians and teachers and everything else, because after all, if you want to teach in a public school, right, you got to get a degree. And the vast majority of universities buy into this crap. And some of the most absurd divisions within those universities are the education departments. If you think the university itself is liberal, go look at the education departments. I mean, I got to hand it to them. The critical theorists, the Marxists, they did a good job. They followed Antonio Gramsci's model. They worked their way into culturally shaping institutions. They engaged in ideological capture, and now they're using it to pump out more adherents and then throw them into your kids, not high school class, not just middle school class, they're elementary school classes. And if you point it out and say there's something fishy about this, well, you're just a bigot. Well, correction. It goes through the 4-step process, right? Step 1 is that's not happening. Then when you show them irrefutable proof that it is happening, they say, well, why do you care that it's happening? Right? And then when you try to explain why you care that it's happening, they finally admit, okay, maybe it's happening, but here's why it's a good thing. And then when you're not convinced that it actually is a good thing, and you point out that if it was a good thing, why didn't you just say that in the first place instead of trying to convince you it's not happening? Then they go to step 4, which is, okay, if you don't like what's happening, if you don't celebrate what's happening, if you don't contribute to what's happening, you're just a filthy bigot. And now we can completely disregard any opinion, any critique, anything that you might say, because after all, the moment you try to formulate a critique, well, that's just your white supremacy coming through. But what if you're black or Hispanic or Asian? Well, that's just because you've adopted white supremacy. Do you see what's going on here? How do you combat this argument? Because they don't believe in objective truth, because they don't believe in objective morality, and because they honestly believe things like linear thinking are attributes of whiteness. If you don't believe that, go look at the poster that went up in the Smithsonian at the Black History Museum. It was called Attributes of Whiteness. And some of the things that were listed as attributes of whiteness were things like the Protestant work ethic, the nuclear family, linear thinking, the scientific method. It wasn't conservatives who put that up there as if they were bragging that look at what the whites created. No, it was leftist college professors that were floating this idea that if you engage in things or if you insist on things like the scientific method or linear thinking, well, then you're just being captured by white supremacy. These are attributes of whiteness. And after all, whiteness needs to be destroyed, abolished, genocided. Now, there's one other thing I want to bring up with all of this. Part of the reason why they are pushing this is because this was part of a Marxist-driven attempt to try to create cultural Marxism. Antonio Gramsci talks about it. It's been called the March Through the Institutions. It was the idea that, well, if you want to overthrow capitalism, if you want to overthrow our conceptions of Western liberty, property rights, things of that nature, well, it's not good enough to just throw up the communist flag and go to town, right? That didn't work in most of Europe. You had to actually create culturally shaping institutions that would push a renewed way of looking at the world. So, for instance, if you're the sort of person that maybe has Christian values,
Brainwashing. That's what he's saying. That's what he's getting at. It's brainwashing. The only way that they can brainwash you is to try to use the things that you hold dear, like Christianity. That's why, if you didn't notice, Demonrats do this all the time. Don Lemonhead said he was a Christian, even though in the Bible it clearly says what happens to homos in Christianity, what they're facing. But yet he says it anyway, doesn't he? Because by saying that, it disarms you. You start letting your guard down, and maybe you'll hear what he has to say. I'm telling you, this stuff has been tested and tried for a very long time. It's all designed to bypass your defenses, the things that would ping you to know that something is wrong. That's what it's designed to do. And then once it takes root, that root is going to sprout into some other ideological insanity, which is why you have people out there literally like that Nancy Good, I think her name was, and Preddy, who are willing to give their lives to something they think is true when indeed they're not doing that. They were just brainwashed and tricked into doing something stupid, thinking that they were going to be a martyr for the cause. In the context of history, they're going to be nobody. They're going to be forgotten about, for one. But even if they are remembered, they're going to be remembered as being terrorists. I mean, that isn't how I would want to go out. But, we do have a problem with honor in this country, and I don't think it's Americans. It's been brought in by... a lot of people feel oppressed right now, and I get it. I speak to a lot of people who watch my content on this platform and others, and just in general, and they give me their feedback. And I truly feel for all of you that are being, that have this pressure put on you every day in video games and just everything in everyday life. Everything you do, there could be a sign somewhere, you won't even realize it, but it's trying to alter your perception and change the root of what makes you a good person. When you get right down to it, it is demonic. It's good versus evil. And we're going to see black people aren't falling they're not falling for it anymore. And why white people are having such... even at this point, black Americans are like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like, what is wrong with you guys? You established America. You fought against Britain. Not us directly, but our ancestors, and that blood flows through our veins. And what's going on? Where's that brave guy that won World War II? Where are those people at? Well, this is what happens after a lifetime of being propagandized. This is what happens. People that don't accept it fight back. Some people that try to fight back get stepped on and broken. And other people just give up and they don't want to be involved. Which is the worst of them. Because they've never suffered anything. They just gave up because they didn't feel like dealing with it. It's like when somebody buys if somebody buys you a car, right? And then you run it through the mud, you don't really care about it. You're not going to care about it as much as if you pay for it yourself or you earn it yourself. And most Americans, sadly, have not earned the rights that they have. Sure, I believe that those rights are passed down by God. But you know what? Somebody has to protect those rights, otherwise you wouldn't have them. Just saying. And it's usually protected. The cost of that freedom, of those things that you enjoy, is paid in blood.
And you think that everybody's created in the image of God, and so they have an inherent wealth, but all of us also have a sinful nature. If you're the sort of person that believes in things like property rights, if you're the sort of person that believes that free market economics, which is to say an economic system where people are allowed to own the means of production and engage in voluntary exchange with one another in order to provide goods and services, if you're the sort of person that believes in representative government, if you're the sort of person that believes that people should be relatively free to make their own decisions, but also have to deal with the consequences of their own actions, well, I've got bad news, right? That Christian, free market, representative government, individual liberty, personal responsibility approach is now evil. You're the bad guy. But it's hard to get people to buy into that. So what do you got to do? You have to take over the culturally shaping institutions which teach them. And that's what's been happening in most of academia. And now we're at the result where they weren't satisfied with academia because that was never the goal. Academia was a stepping stone to something else. This is how they put their people in positions of political power and positions of influence, whether it's in your schools or arts and entertainment or even in some of your churches. And they've done a good job of running the tables on us. But one of the things that is uniquely evil about this approach and the way it's applied in the United States is they are trying to get white men to behave the way they say we behave. Not the way I think we actually do. Maybe some people do, but to categorize an entire race like that is, well, a little bit racist, if you ask me. No, they also want white men to see black people, Asians, Hispanics. They want us to see them as our enemies. The problem is that the vast majority of us don't. There was a joke going around for a while that they keep calling conservatives racist, but if you asked us what the ideal Supreme Court looked like to us, it would all be Clarence Thomas. Right? One of my favorite authors, contemporary authors on social issues, political issues, economics, is Thomas Sowell. I have this little joke I do. Everyone knows that I have a mission to get Thomas Sowell the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The vast majority of white people that adopt those attributes, which are now considered whiteness, which, by the way, are not attributes of whiteness. They're just attributes. They're ideas, they're concepts, and they're open to everybody. They weren't invented by white people. But now we're being told that, no, that's yours. That's your category, which means presumably they don't belong to anybody else. Which means presumably they want to paint us into a corner where straight white men feel as if we're surrounded by everybody else. And so they want to create conditions where you are tempted to adopt their explanation of the world. And instead of rejecting that explanation, instead of demonstrating how it's demonstrably false, they want you to turn on anybody that might agree with you but doesn't share your skin color. In short, they want you to behave the way they do. Because if they can get you to react in that way, if they can get you to say, no, Thomas Sowell is my enemy, not because we believe differently about things, but because of his skin color, well, then you can fall into the trap of being everything that they claim you are. And so what I would encourage you to do is to not simply reject what they're saying in the sense that you are unwilling to accept this definition of straight white male as the source of all the world's ills or uniquely evil or bad. You need to reject the entire worldview they're trying to push. Because I guarantee you that if they were in different circumstances, if they were in a different place and time, they would have just picked a different enemy. They've picked racism in America because they know that there is guilt, not just from slavery, but also from things like Jim Crow laws. They understand that that guilt exists as a useful tool. And they're never going to accept any environment where there can be forgiveness and reconciliation and moving on. They need it. They need it to fuel the rage that they require in order to push their agenda. And they're going to try to create conditions where you feel so isolated that you essentially accept their definition of you. They say that, well, fine. If you're telling me that all the white guys are bad, well, then I guess I'm going to team them up with all the other white guys, regardless of what they might believe, regardless of their character. And I'm just going to say, this is my team now. And I'm going to alienate or reject anybody that might look different from me, even if they agree with me on the fundamental principles that I believe in. That's why you need to reject the entirety of their theory, not just their definition of straight white men. I look at people like Thomas Sowell. I look at people like Maya Flores. I look at people who look differently than me, who might come from different backgrounds, who are different sex than me, and I don't see them as automatically my enemy. I never will. I will never accept that definition because I know that deep down it's what the opposition wants. But more than that, I know deep down it's incorrect. God didn't create us this way. There's a reason why in Christianity it says that there's neither male nor female nor Jew nor Greek. It's not It's not ignoring that the fact that there are different ethnicities. It's not ignoring that there are, in fact, men and women. It's suggesting that it's our Christian faith which actually unites us and brings us together. Scripture is very clear that all of us have fallen short of the glory of God. All of us are capable of various sins. All of us are capable of racism. Their attempt to uniquely exclude one race of people, that being white men and specifically straight white men, is a tactic to achieve what they really want, which is Marxism. It's some form of Marxism every single time. And so that's why they reject Christianity. That's why they reject the nuclear family. That's why they reject free market economics. That's why they reject private property rights. That's why they reject this concept of individual liberty and personal responsibility. So, do us all a favor and completely reject all of the worldview that they're trying to push. Don't fall into the trap of believing that every white guy out there is your ally because they're a white guy. No, the people that are your allies are the people that share your character and your worldview. And we're not about to let ourselves be defined by the worst definitions possible made up by our political enemies. And listen, I use the word enemy intentionally at this point, not because I wanted to use that term, but because they've consistently used it toward us. And my enemy is not someone based off of their skin color. My enemy is not someone based off of their sex. My enemy is someone that decides that they want to push this perverse worldview. And again, they're not my enemy for life. Ultimately, I see other people created in the image of God, and I see someone that I want to come to redemption, and I want to have reconciliation. But insofar as they're going to push this agenda, I'm going to push back. And it's important to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it and the way they manipulate language in order to achieve their objectives. So, I am very happy to look out across America and find people of all skin colors, to find both men and women who openly reject the critical theory view of the world, whether it be critical race theory, queer theory, gender theory, whatever. It's garbage. They know it. And quite frankly, it cannot possibly win because it is overly reliant on people that are bitter and accept a victim mentality and quite frankly couldn't really create or build anything. All they know how to do is to destroy what's already there, to confiscate, to redistribute, but never to create or build. So, find people, not based off of their skin color, not based off of their sex, but based off of their character, based off of their worldview, and work together in order to destroy this one. Because this is a completely intellectually and morally bankrupt view of the world that produces nothing but misery everywhere it's tried. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next episode.
He's right. And the reason I wanted to play that in its entirety is because it's so right. And that's basically my views on things. I have friends of every ethnicity and color. I mean, I have friends that are in Russia. I have friends that aren't. I have friends that are, all over the world. I mean, that's the great thing about the internet now. It connects us all, you know what I mean, as humanity. However, sadly, that can be used as a weapon too. And I'm telling you, there is no defeating America unless Americans defeat. We can only be defeated from within. That's why it's so important that that we tackle this and end it. And like he was saying, it's far past time to get involved. It's far past time to get involved. Bad things are happening, guys. The midterms especially coming up. We have to win those. Why do we have to learn the hard way every time? Why do we have to go through like with Biden? I mean, obviously now we have proof that the election was rigged in 2020. Trump is trying to sort that out, but he's also, in my opinion, fumbling a bit because he's not nationalizing. He's not doing the things that they keep accusing him of. They just throw that garbage out there. I mean, these Demonrats are hateful. Just listen to them talk. Listen to Hakeem Jeffries talk. Like when that picture came up, They had Obama and Michelle and Barack Obama as animals in this that cartoon, The Lion King. Instead of looking at the full context, what did they do? They immediately started calling him a racist and everything else, because that has been what has worked over time. That's why we need to take the power from the word or use it back against them. Because I'll be honest with you, none of them have ancestry or people in their past that didn't commit slavery in the worst ways possible. Far worse than America ever did. Like I said, the Arabian slave trade, they would cut the genitals off of their slaves, including white people. It wasn't just black people, it was white people too. The Barbary slave trade was far huger, far larger than the American slave trade, or what do they call that? Transatlantic slave trade. It was far larger, and it went on for far longer. I mean, once again, it was America just trying, instead of just attacking, just trying to say, hey, look, can we stop this? We can all get along and have a peaceful world, you know, and imagine what we can create together. And instead, we're opposed at every side by these evil people. They just want to rule us. They don't want you to think for yourself. They want you to follow, because they don't think you have the intelligence to make your own choices. That's what this fight is about. That's the war that we're raging. And I agree with him. Those people are my enemy. They are my enemy. And they better pray to God. They better pray to holy heaven, Jesus, that Trump never does get to the point to where he declares them as insurrectionists and traitors, and that we have to fight these people to get them out, because then they're going to be facing people like me and you and others who are far better trained, in far better health, and that American fire is going to be burning. Once we get past all this nonsense about racism and black and pride, and, you know, I think all of it is there. It's all designed to separate us. There is no such thing as an African American. It doesn't exist. Unless, of course, they're coming over here and are illegals and stuff like that. There's only Americans. We're all Americans. Okay? Black, white, red, I don't care what your color is. If you're here and you're legally here, you're an American. If you're still espousing the views of your country, then you're not an American, and you should go. Like Ilhan Omar. And she lied anyways. They need to get her out. And I get it, guys. It's frustrating to take an illegal course. I mean, sometimes it feels like we allow these people to get away with too much. You know what I mean? Just to hold that bar that we're following the law and we're doing all that. But understand, we don't know everything that's going on with Trump. We don't know the limitations he's under presidentially. We know what he can do, but we don't. He himself doesn't know what the American people would even support, because we're all jinky janky every 5 seconds. I mean, look what happened with ICE. They say, and I don't believe polls, by the way, for the most part, because they choose who they poll. Even Fox News, they choose who they poll. So what you get is a biased poll. But that being said, from Trump's point of view, he doesn't see conservatives or Republicans out there standing up and protesting or counter-protesting these psychos. That means, to him, in his mind, maybe those people support this shit. I mean, look how many moderates, these weak-spined jellyfish in a moderate party, the Independent Party, and some Republicans who came out against him immediately. Just on that meme, they didn't even know what was going on before they came out and asked him to kneel. Again, it's always about getting you to kneel, isn't it? I mean, isn't it? That's fascinating, isn't it? They're always trying to get you to kneel. We don't kneel, though. We're Americans. We don't kneel for anybody. This is the Kingdom Reacts, and this is a 17-minute video. It's going to be a kind of long video because I've talked a little bit through it too. But I think it's worth it, and I would beg your understanding and just watch this, because it really does matter. I mean, it puts in context what's going on and what people like me want. You know, we don't want you to hate black people. We want you to stand up for your culture, for the American culture, which isn't just white, by the way. It's all of our cultures. But and from my particular point, okay, after I saw the population numbers for people that are white, I mean, the alarm bells are going off at 20%, and now we're at 6. I'm just saying, guys. There is no this idea that they're like, well, it would be, mocha cappuccino kind of. That'll be the average American. Man, shut up. No, it'll be the death of a culture, and you know it. We all know it. We've heard what the Demonrats say when they don't think anybody's paying attention, or they say it when audiences are going to hear them. That's not us. They are the majority now. Just like that Chinese freak said. They're the majority. Let's take it over. Let's overthrow white people. Not just America. White people. They're directly attacking that. That's why I focus on that some. I wouldn't say all the time. A lot of times what I'm focused on is America. And part of America is white people. I mean, together we all make America what it is, the giant that it is, you know what I mean? The superpower that it is. That is our strength. But you have to be American. You have to have that American spirit. So let's get in this video. I don't want to make it too much longer. Again, I've already liked here. I hope that you do the same. Again, 565,000 subscribers, 13,000 views, and only 2.5 thousand likes. I mean, they're fighting for you. I mean, the least we can do is give them likes, right? I think, anyway. Alright, let's get into this.
I am tired. It is the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. And we have to spend one of the days dealing with the fact that Donald Trump, the president of the United States, is an unrepentant racist. Last night, he posted just an outlandish video showing President Obama and First Lady Obama as monkeys.
Can we get these swisher sweet ass niggas a box of fucking Kleenex? Black people are the biggest political pawns in this country. You niggas on cue and on command will get overly emotional and outraged about anything. The only reason for why we're seeing the mainstream media talk about this is because they want you niggas riled up for the midterms about something. This happens every fucking time around the midterms, and you niggas are too low IQ to understand it. I'm tired of being used like a fucking political bioweapon to get outraged about stupid shit. That's what the fuck I'm tired of as a black person. Being used like a fucking toy, like an animal. And of course this nigga's crying about fucking Black History Month. Nigga, fucking please. Pull the tampon out your pussy, nigga.
Hi, let's pause. This right here is where the temperature spikes immediately. Yeah, because whether you agree or disagree, that's not even a point. What matters is what he's accusing. Distraction cycles, emotional triggers, election year outrage loops. That's a pretty heavy claim. And what's interesting isn't even the rent. It's how many people are starting to question who benefits when attention gets redirected, and what conversations what conversations never get had because of it. And make sure I worded that correctly. And once identity and narrative gets questioned, that opens the door to the next layer. Let's go ahead and roll that thing real quick if I can get it loaded up.
Jesse Jackson said that African Americans should be how you refer to Black Americans.
This is ABL. He's Anthony something. Oh man, I can't remember the last part. So, but it's ABL. He's good. He's a good content creator. I'm just saying he's a good content creator.
Americans in 1989, and then people just ran with it. I never understood the term African American. I'm not African. I've been in the United States for a very long time. Born here, obviously, but my ancestors been here for a long time, since the 1600s in Virginia. So there's no African American. Okay, we're Black American. That's just what it is. So some may use that term, but I don't use that term. So I'm not really into squabbling over who could use it or not. I just say Black American. Whatever you want to call yourself is your thing. If you identify as a dinosaur, a pet gerbil, a jackrabbit, whatever, it's fine. I don't really care, but I'm gonna call myself Black American. And I think the majority of us would say the same thing. We're Black, not African. Shout out to my Africans, I love y'all, but we're just not y'all. Just like if you have a white person who's been here since the Nina and the Pinks and the Santa Maria talking about they got family back in the old country. What old country? You talking about Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama? What old country you talking about? Ain't no old country. You're an American now. You didn't come here in the Ellis Island days. You came here in the year 1775.
See, now this is where things pivot from politics to identity, because this ain't party talk. This is definition talk. Who are we? What labels actually mean? And who decides them? And you can see why this resonates online. People are moving away from umbrella branding towards lineage, history. You know, it's not rejection, it's distinction. And once identity gets reframed, history starts to get revisited too, y'all. Let me go ahead and roll it.
Day 2 of exposing black history, because like it literally didn't even happen. I've heard for my whole life that we can't understand American history without essentially orienting the entire conversation toward the practice of slavery. Thus, we must take time to discuss the first legally recognized slave owner in the American colonies, a black man named Anthony Johnson. Now, I don't know why we don't learn about this guy in school. I mean, he got to Virginia in 1621. Historian Philip Foner called him the patriarch of black property owners in America. So essentially, Anthony Johnson was kidnapped by African slave traders in southern Africa, sold to the Portuguese, sent to Virginia where he eventually earned his freedom, but then he would go on to purchase slaves himself and even use the legal system that we're told is so systemically anti-black to take a black slave away from a white guy, and then he would end up becoming, an extraordinarily wealthy tobacco farmer. So I don't bring him up to be like, oh look, black people can be successful in America. We obviously know that. It's just to say that how he obtained that level of success seems to be a bit typical for that time, wouldn't you say? So he had 5 indentured servants. He had 4 white guys and 1 black guy. A little bit of a sidebar on indentured servants. I don't know if you know this, but because indentured servitude was a temporary labor contract rather than lifetime ownership, like with slavery, they were often treated far worse than slaves were. They were worked harder, they were beaten worse, they were starved more because their masters had no long-term interest in their health, which is why the mortality rate of indentured servants was actually much higher than slaves. By the way, indentured servants in America, overwhelmingly white, just if we're keeping score. But the one black indentured servant that
Bing.
he had was a man named John Kaser. He claimed that his indentured servitude contract was only 7 years, and so he wanted to leave, and his wife and his kids begged Anthony Johnson to let them go. But Anthony Johnson said, what are you talking about? There's no contract. I simply own you. So John Kaser leaves anyway to go work for this white guy on his plantation, saying, hey, I'm a free guy now. Anthony Johnson literally chases this guy down and gets the courts involved to say, nope, I'm taking you away from this white guy. I actually own you for life. So because of Anthony Johnson, John Kaser became one of the first Africans in America enslaved for life as a result of civil suit rather than punishment. It's like literally on his Wikipedia page. That's what he's known for. Save me the crying about America.
I'm just saying, I mean, this man is cooking. Come on. I mean, it flips things on its head, doesn't it? To find out that actually slavery in America started by a black man. I mean, I already knew that, but to get even more into it, wow. I mean, it kind of shatters that whole narrative that the Demonrats use, right? Because not all black people use that. Matter of fact, I would say the majority of black people are opposed to using that. Just throwing out the racist words. And like I said, that racist accusations. Like I said, they're fighting back. They're standing up for you. Shouldn't you be doing the same?
Racism when black people were literally enslaving other black people on American soil before George Washington was even born. Truth matters. I love black people.
Wow. And here's where the internet loves to throw gasoline. Because uncomfortable historical nuance travels pretty fast, y'all. Not because it's new, but because it's not emphasized. And when people hear something that challenges classroom simplicity, they don't just react, they dig. I mean, dig deep. Whether the takeaway is agreement, rejection, or deeper research, one thing happens every single time. The conversation, it stops being surface level. And once history gets questioned, people start pulling numbers next. And that's what we're about to do. Let's go.
Now, why would that be? Why would one story demand 100 articles and another story 0 articles? And it's because the media is more interested in the all capitals story, the narrative, than the facts or the truth. Take a look at the difference here. I want to show you the actual truth when it comes to crime. The story is about race. Race. Take a look at the black on white crimes, 385,000 in 2023.
I want to I want to pause this for a second just so you understand, okay? Look at those numbers. It's 607,000 unknown on white, okay? 385,000 unknown, black on white crime. Okay, let's just take the left side out for a second and focus on the right side. Black on white and unknown on white. That's what? 6, 7, 8. That's 800,000 people killed every year. That's in 2023 alone. Think about that for a second. If you think that it's not happening out there, that it's not bad, you're wrong. It's very bad. And then when you see the numbers on the left, remember that black people only make up, 15% of the population of this country. Yet these numbers are pretty damning. It kind of makes it look like when they tell you that you can't use, what do you call that? Say that, oh, it's a black man, or if you're hunting, illegal immigrants that are over here, and you're like, well, if they talk a certain language, it's not right, and whatever, maybe they're black or something because you're looking for a suspect that's black that doesn't speak English. Oh, well, that's racial stereotyping or some nonsense. It's like, bro, the numbers speak clearly. I mean, they see again. It's like what was said earlier by Nick. They want to subjugate your words and change their meanings. I knew this a while ago, but nobody. I don't know. I felt like nobody was on my side about it. Now people are starting to talk about it. Thank God. But to see it playing out, you know what I mean? These words on certain apps, which I'll leave nameless. I mean, if you haven't noticed, every time it's only on conservative I've only seen it on conservative sites. You get a little note on the bottom. Even if it's proven wrong, even if what they're saying is factually incorrect, they know how to brainwash people. They know that if they just keep putting it there, that people might not even watch the entire content to know what's going on, and next thing you know, it's in your head. That's what you believe. I know so many family and friends that went through that I really woke up that I showed them that, and through these videos too. That's why I won't stop doing it, because I fully and completely believe that if we don't push back on this narrative, it's going to be the end of America. I mean, if you think that America can't collapse, you're absolutely wrong. I mean, it wouldn't maybe cave in on itself. It would be far worse than that. I mean, they would, like I said, they would use America to destroy the world. Bet on that. China has no idea what they're funding. They have no idea the monster they're creating. It's like the Frankenstein monster. That's what America would be, and we would be the most deadliest force on the planet. It would result in horrible things happening if communists ran this country. That's why we have to push back. We have to fight. It's time to stop sitting down, stop riding the fence, and to start fighting for America. Because this is our country. No other country is like it. You will not get rights in other countries. All these people screaming, screeching, but my rights. Yeah, well, you wouldn't even have them if America wasn't here. So, and beyond that, if they don't like it here so much, why don't they just leave? I mean, obviously there has to be a better country, right? Something that more fits their idiocy? Of course there is. I mean, like Ilhan Omar, why is she in America? To rip us off and steal our money. She wants to be in Somalia, though. Personally, I say we kick her right in her ass and hope she lands on the Somali continent. But if she lands out in the ocean, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's how she got here anyway. I'm just done with it, man. I'm done playing by their rules. Their rules are broken and they're meant to demean us.
The white on black crimes, just under 118,000. You see the comparative numerical difference. But now, here's what the media actually does. They did what our camera operator just began to do a moment ago. I'm going to step out of the way. I'm going to show you literally what the media does with a camera. They zoom in on this number. This number, devoid of context. Now, why would that be? Why would one story demand 100 articles?
Exactly. Now, this is where discourse usually explodes because statistics are nuclear online. Some people treat them like gospel, others treat them like manipulation. Most don't even check, methodology. I'm trying to learn this word. I've been struggling with this word all day. But here's what matters most for our purposes: perception versus coverage. When people believe the spotlight is selective, trust erodes, narratives fracture, and sides harden. And when trust breaks, ideology, starts getting blamed. I want y'all to
Ideologically, I get it. Look, man, I get tongue tied a lot when I'm doing videos. If he's doing the same thing I am, which he very likely is. I mean, by the way, he's looking at his computer to bring up these videos. He's not reading off of a pre-prepared script, and that makes it harder. I mean, if you ever had like where your brain blanks out or anything like that, I have that happen all the time. Everybody does. It just depends on how you handle it. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm still growing my ability to talk in videos. So I am getting better at it, I believe, and I will get better, especially creating a content and editing it and stuff like that. Matter of fact, I have a treat coming up with Helldivers where it's going to be a POV tactical experience. I've never done it before, so wish me luck, guys. But I have a few guys that are willing to help me to get that out to all of you for the low price of nothing. That's the experience I want to give you. What's it like in the military? The tactics of maybe using tactics in games and stuff. Anyway, I can talk about that in those videos. Get back to this. This is much more important at the moment.
watch this.
You know who white conservatives despise more than anybody else? It's not black people, it's not Hispanics, it's white liberals. Because the worst parts of the black community are enabled by white liberal policy. And the worst parts of immigration is the result of white liberal policy. The worst part of the trans community is enabled by white liberal activists. Everything that is wrong with our country is the result of liberal policies that are championed and signed off by white liberals. They destroy everything under the guise of compassion and equality, but in reality, they enable people to remain inferior and infantilize the black community with taxpayer dollars and incentivize illegal immigrants not only to stay, but to keep them comfortable. And they don't even know it. That's the scary part. They don't even realize that they are the problem when they think they are helping.
I mean, she's not wrong. She's absolutely right. That is what's happening. I mean, really, as Americans, we should be fully behind the president and ICE to use whatever means they have to get these illegals out. Because understand this. Sure, people want to come here and have a good life, right? But most people aren't willing to put in the work and the effort to get that life. When you have social welfare programs that are designed for the injured, the disabled, those who can't do for themselves, and instead these people are put on at whole cloth. I remember, like in the beginning when they were rushing all these people over, wondering why they were getting thousands of dollars on their EBT cards. I don't get nothing like that. I don't even get. I'm telling you, you'd be shocked at how much I get on any of those. I mean, it's insane. And yet, I always felt guilty. I always feel guilty. It makes no sense. But I mean, it makes sense that these people think that we're idiots. And we're only here to give to them. I mean, I was watching a video the other day. I could cue it up and bring it up, but I'm not going to right now. If I have to, I will. Well, where Somali was talking about how without them, if they hadn't been here, they stimulated the economy. Well, how did they stimulate the economy? Through fraud, but that doesn't matter. They got the economy rolling over there. What they don't talk about is how bad that destroyed our economy. Which is why Trump is turning the economy around right now and doing everything he can, to bring us back to pre-COVID levels, which is actually, I can make a video about that too. It's working fabulously. And we're only a little over a year that he's been in presidency. It's in history. It's never. I mean, he every time he gets in as president, he turns things around so fast. I mean, it's almost like he turns the switch off. You know, the oppression labeled switch off, and then America stands up, and you know, on the global stage, we take command again. We start. Everybody has peace. Why do you think these countries aren't blowing the shit at each other? You know what I mean? It's because of us. We're doing God's work here on earth, and we need to keep doing that. We need to get our culture back, because our culture is bringing peace to the earth. I mean, imagine one day if we can keep this going, if we can do this, that all nations, all peoples could work together to do great things, maybe go deep into space, which I don't think is ever going to happen. I mean, trust me, if you knew more about, like, how big our galaxy is and what it's surrounded by, I think you would probably understand that there is a God, and his son's name is Jesus. I mean, because it just defies reality how our galaxy is situated. The James Webb Telescope is discovering so much, and it's just leaving scientists shocked. But they never want to talk about the Christian side of it. I think spirituality is another side of us. I mean, we all go somewhere when we die. I refuse to believe that everything that we go through, all the trials and tribulations, are there for nothing.
You know who white
I'm
conservatives
not gonna lie, that
despise?
instrumental was nice. That right there, though, it taps into something deeper than party loyalty. This taps resentment, dependency to base policy consequences as well. And you're seeing a reoccurring pattern today, not, opposition voices, internal criticism voices, rather, which politically hits very differently, because critique from outside gets dismissed. Critique from inside, it spreads. But speaking of the inside, let's go ahead and just roll this next one.
Do you want to know why conservatives and Republicans hate white liberal women so much? It's because they need us.
No, Scarlett, the issue is your overt racism wrapped in a smile and a white savior complex. Yep. You've been conditioned to believe that nothing can succeed without you, that our progress requires your approval, your presence, and your guidance. And because your sense of value is tied to being needed, you've created policies and movements that keep people dependent on you. Because the moment a black person or a Hispanic person doesn't align with your value system, the one that positions you as the gatekeeper to our success, you flood our DMs, calling us traitors to our race. You police us like overseers. You put us in our place, and you chase us like slave catchers, trying to drag us back into dependency so you can keep calling yourself an ally. That's why people are done with white liberalism. Facts. It's not because you're powerful. It's because you need to feel like you are by any means necessary.
This clip right here is why strategists lose sleep, because independence language is contagious. Self-determination messaging spreads fast online, especially when it challenges savior narratives. And once voters start framing themselves as, autonomous decision makers, party ownership weakens, which leads directly into the historical accountability argument.
Can we talk about the fact that the Democrats are the true racists? Or can we talk about the fact that they're the ones that authored the most legislation that is detrimental to the black community? Do I have to mention the Great Society Act, which separated black families and made black women whores to the government? Or the 1986 anti-drug abuse bill, which locked black men up disproportionately? Or the 1994 crime bill, which made states build prisons all over to put them in. And I know you guys don't want to talk about the fact that they're the ones that authored the Jim Crow laws. They're the ones that were responsible for placing poll taxes and literacy tests so black people couldn't vote. Y'all don't want to talk about that, do you? And I know you guys don't want to talk about the fact that the Republicans were the ones that fought to end slavery and were fighting for your black ass. Not to mention that the first black representative in Congress was a Republican, and also the first.
Facts. These are all facts. And facts don't care about your feelings, I know that's an old saying used up a lot, but it's a good saying here. This woman is cooking. I've not seen this yet. That's why I decided to react to it. This woman is on fire.
Senator was a Republican as well. Oh, and also, yeah, more Republicans voted for the civil rights than Democrats. Hope this helps.
Now, this is where history becomes political ammunition, if you will. Legislation, timelines, party evolution, policy impact, whether people accept or dispute interpretations, this type of messaging lands because it sounds confident, detailed, and structured. And confidence spreads faster than nuance on the internet. However, not only does it sound confident, these are actual facts that we negate in the black community for whatever reason. Which brings us to modern campaign framing. Crockett.
You know, there are those that have their own motivations for critiquing. And, you know, I think that the people...
Is it just racism and sexism? Like, what do you think it is?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things. I think it depends on who it's coming from. But I've been a black woman my whole life. So this idea that I'm going to go and be like, oh, well, they're being racist or misogynistic towards me. Like, you think I didn't know I was a black woman when I woke up and decided that I was going to run for the United States Senate? Mm-hmm. You think I didn't factor in and make sure that we had enough room to account for that? We did. You know, there are those.
And here we arrive in present day electoral reality. Identity, anticipation, bias, expectations, and campaign positioning. This clip shows the contrast between narrative framing and public reaction framing, right? And that tension right there is exactly what fuels political momentum cycles online, which leads us to the clip that started this entire thread. Pulling in my head today, y'all. Let's run it.
I got fired from United Airlines for being a Republican because my coworkers didn't like the fact that I was voicing my opinion on an app, which is my own page. And I'm not bashing United Airlines because United didn't do this. It's the people I work with and the people that work for them. I told them the allegations that came from this anonymous person stated my full legal name. I was like, my TikTok name is not even my real name. This person put my first name, my middle name, and my last name. This person utilized company resources to report me anonymously and said that I am a United flight attendant. So nobody was able to identify me. And it came from in-house. It came from in-house. They didn't care that somebody leaks my phone number. They didn't care that somebody leaks my full legal name. They just didn't care. The lady for the last week, I knew I was going to get fired. I just literally knew I was going to get fired because she was all over my TikToks, posting comments all over my TikToks. And best believe, since you decided to just comment on my thing, I'm not going to say her name, but I'm going to give you a hint.
You decided not to, I guess. Now, this takes the conversation outside politics and into cultural institutions, workplace ideology, speech boundaries, and corporate policy perception. Whether the claim proves accurate or incomplete, that's secondary to the viral impact. People believe viewpoints are carrying consequences. And once that belief spreads, it doesn't stay contained. It feeds directly back into everything we just watched. Identity, history, policy, trust, representation, all connected. This right here is a sad reality of what the Democrats have been able to create based off rhetoric. Now, look, you don't have to agree with every clip. You definitely don't even have to agree with any of them. That's never the takeaway here. The takeaway is noticing the shift. Different voices, different angles, different questions, different opinion, independent singles.
It's not just their views either. I think it shows, like I said, that people are standing up finally and, you know, pushing back against the Demonrat narrative and overall just how evil the Demonrat party is right now. Can it be reformed? I mean, I don't know. When I look back in history, all I see is evil from the Demonrat party. You know? I mean, what good have they done? I mean, really, what good have they done? I mean, Jim Crow, KKK, everything back through time, slavery. You know, the Republican Party was formed to fight slavery. I mean, I just... This shouldn't even be a strong debate between Americans, which is why they brought in all the illegals, okay? Which is why they're defending, they're fighting the SAVE Act, which would make, people have to show proof to vote. Which is why they're fighting ICE as hard as they are. And the majority of the people that are out there protesting are paid actors. Because guess what? Regular Americans have jobs. You have to have a roof over your head. You know what I mean? You have to have food in your belly. I mean, these are the facts. This is not a grassroots uprising, okay? This is a foreign-funded attempt to take over our country by communists and Marxists from other countries, other global powers, which, for me, and this is why I have a problem with Trump not doing more like following the Insurrection Act and possibly martial law to remove these communist agitators from our government. Like, most of the Democrat Party at this point, I would say, are communist agitators. They're owned by foreign powers. You know what I mean? They try to get us at each other's throat. They have nobody on their side. The Democrat Party would cease to exist as a fighting force in this country if they didn't cheat, if they didn't lie, if they didn't try to brainwash people. They're barely hanging on right now. Trump is doing a lot. So I understand everybody out there when I read your comments and I speak to you that you're aggravated right now. You want to fight back. I'm not like other people when it comes to, civil war against these freaks and all them. I do believe that we would win that civil war within 2 to 3 weeks. I think it would be over because we own them. We own conservative states. Own all of the food manufacturing, growth and like everything. These cities and these sanctuary places just become huge black holes, sucking in everything around it. You know what I mean? And it's destroying America too. I mean, I'm watching in my own state them trying to turn Philadelphia into a cesspit, and Philadelphians are standing up to it though. Because you know what? Pennsylvania has a special place in America's heart. Anyway, I appreciate it if you watch the end. Again, I just want to bring attention to this. I want people to have the weapons to wage a conversational war when it's needed. I want them to be able to talk to their family members because hopefully they're still logical and they think enough to where you could conversate with them and say, hey, look, if you don't, look, my own mother was I mean, a radical leftist, and I had to end my relationship with her. I didn't want to. Who wants to end their relationship with their mother? But there's only so many things. There's only so much I can tolerate. You know what I mean? And I cannot tolerate somebody that's literally okay with burying Trump under the jail, which is basically saying to kill him, because I mean, you buried him under the jail. Is he going to be let out? Is he going to be fed? I mean, you're burying him under the jail. I don't think so. I mean, that could be a saying. I don't want to be too rough, okay? I'm just saying, sadly, and it's not even her fault, right? It's just she's so opposed to any views and trying to see the truth of it that there's no reason to try to break her worldview, because I won't be able to. You know what I mean? The only thing that's going to teach her that is life's lessons, you know what I mean, and how things turn out if they do go bad. But I won't be dragged behind the horses of these people that have been brainwashed, because that's what it comes down to. Everything that you're seeing the Democrat Party do right now, the Demonrat Party, my bad, is it comes from Marxist playbooks and it works, by the way. I would say CIA's used it in the past too. They're trying to get you mind numb. That's why they hit over and over again. Every day it's another like news story about something crazy going on. People get fed up. They get exhausted. You know what I mean? It's like, guys, can we just stop this? And if they won't stop it, then we need to stop it. And I'm with that side that says we need to stop it. I think at this point it's I mean, with all the riots, all the violence and everything, it's gone so far past the realm and the position that we can these demon rats are not going to just give up power. Okay? They're not just going to play by the rules. They've been cheating for decades. They're not just going to give up. They're not going to hand it over and just listen to what the American people want, because ultimately that's who the president is doing, what we voted him in to do. But yet they're fighting every time they insult him, every time they kick one of his policies, they're kicking you if you voted for him. If you're an American, if you're an American and you voted. I mean, even if you voted for them, the fact is that we put up with Biden for 4 years, but yet when it's Trump, they're putting in all this nonsense with judges, these evil judges. I got a lot of stories I can hit you with these fucking judges, by the way. These judges are gross. I mean, we need all foreigners. I don't care. I do not care if they're illegal or not. They need to be gone. We need to get them out of this country. We need to consolidate our country, because it's just too separated, too divided right now. You know what I mean? We need to end the divisiveness, okay, which would be the demon rat political heads and the news anchors, because no, they're not news, the propaganda anchors. We need to end all of that. The only way that I can see Trump can do that, because Congress and the Senate, sadly, are just as invaded as we are, infiltrated, I mean, we got Republicans in there who they claim to be Republicans, but they always go against Republicans. Why is that? Because they're fucking Democrats. They're just pretending to be Republicans. I mean, it feels like sometimes we have a side that's ignorant to the possibility of evil, and that's the side that we're on. Me, I feel it in my bones, probably much like yourself. So you know quickly, and it aggravates you because it takes so long for everybody else to go, hey, man, this is bad. We need to do something to stop it. You want them to do it immediately so people don't suffer, so we can fight back and save our nation, right? I don't know, guys. Like I said, whatever you do, no matter how irritated you might be because Trump will not take a stand, remember the midterms are coming up. He has to appeal to everybody. We have to win the midterms. If we do not win the midterms, all of this is going to be, it's going to come to a screeching halt, because the demon rats, they've already said it. It's going to be impeachment after impeachment after impeachment after impeachment. The most nonsensical shit is going to be about impeachment. They're going to block every bill. They're not going to let bills come to the House floor. This doesn't keep the country neutral. It keeps it neutered. And they're gonna use illegals to vote in elections too. I hope and pray that Trump puts ICE agents at the polling places. Why shouldn't he? What good reason shouldn't he be there? Citizens have nothing to worry about unless they interfere in an election. And the idea that you can't get a hold of your birth certificate or anything else, or that women that got married, they'll be suffering, is nonsense. We all have to do this every day. And black people, that's another thing. That's so evil, the way that these demon rats try to make it look like black people can't work internet or anything else. They're just like us. That's what that lady was saying. These people are evil, racist. Everything that they say about us, they do. So, stand with me. Stand with the country. Let's save this country from the hell that they're trying to bring it to. Because once it falls, you'll never be able to get it back up. And like I said, we should all be opposed to the Demon Rat Party at this point anyway, because China is definitely directed and funding this. I mean, if you ask me, COVID was deliberately done for them to put all the laws that they put in. For them to destroy the economic system, to parasite, to suck out the wealth of America. And we called one and we stopped it. Thank God. Even against all odds, we won the election. With all the cheating that they could muster, we still won the election. We might not be able to do it again. Not if we don't stand up and fight back. And by the way, to John Thune and these other useless heads in the Senate, I've already called them up. I encourage everybody to call them and let them know that you want them to pass the SAVE Act immediately. You want them to end the filibuster. And while Republicans are in control, because the Democrats are going to do it. They've already said they will. John Thune's number, be respectful, please. Be respectful. There's no reason to subject yourself. They record those lines for one thing. And I would never condone that anyway. There's no reason to be yelling and screaming and cussing. And mainly, look, that's your freedom of speech. But, to threaten, no. No threatening, no violence, no nothing like that. You're just calling up to let them know that, hey, we want the SAVE Act passed through. We want the filibuster ended on our terms, okay, Americans' terms, because once the Demonrats get in, it's going to be ended on China's terms. The number for John Thune's office is 202-224-2321. Again, be respectful. This is about the SAVE Act. I'm going to go ahead and cut the video short because I think it's been pretty long now. That was at least 50 minutes, pretty much an hour with the content we watched. And I think they did a good job explaining it themselves. So I appreciate you tuning in. Please hit like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you disagree, or even especially if you agree. I mean, look, if we don't speak up, what is it the Demonrats always say? Silence is violence. I mean, in this case, it will result in that. I mean, we have to fight back, guys. It's up to us. We can't just wait on Trump to do it. You know what I mean? He needs our help, not the other way around. I mean, we're the ones who vote. We're the ones with the power. But if you want to lose that power, then you're going to ignore what I'm saying right now and just not vote. Make whatever excuse you're going to make for not fighting for America. But anyway, I love all you guys. I don't care if there's 5 of you watching, or 25, or 45, or 105. I love everybody who steps in here and watches this content. I understand it's not video game content, right? But it's real life. We can only do... We can't have great video games if we're stuck in this cycle. But that'll be my next content. I'm about to do content on Division 2 also, because they got great content coming. And once Crimson Desert comes out, I'll be covering that as well. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Like I said, please like, share, subscribe, and Sua Sponte Deus Volt.